Leela adjusted the straps of her worn-out backpack, the weight of her decision pressing heavier than the bag itself. It was a chilly Tuesday evening, and the city hummed with the usual chaos, car horns blaring, street vendors shouting, and the distant wail of a siren. She stood outside the gleaming glass tower of Apex Dynamics, a corporate monolith that loomed over the downtown skyline. The building's reflective surface mirrored the fading sunset, casting hues of orange and pink across the pavement. Leela shivered, not just from the cold but from the nagging feeling that she was stepping into something bigger than she'd bargained for. It all started with a phone call from her best friend, Mar. 16-year-old Leela stood in front of the glass doors of Apex Dynamics, her breath fogging in the chilly evening air. The building towered over the city, its sleek, reflective surface catching the last hues of the sunset. She adjusted the straps of her worn-out backpack, the weight of her decision heavier than the bag itself. She wasn't supposed to be here, not tonight, not ever. Cleaning corporate offices was her best friend Mara's gig, not hers. But Mara had called her yesterday, voice cracking with desperation. "Leela, please, I can't make it. My kid's sick, and I'm stuck at the hospital. If I miss this shift, they'll fire me. It's good money, I swear, and it's easy. Just a few hours." Leela, ever the soft touch, couldn't say number. Mara was practically family, and Leela knew what it was like to scrape by. So here she was, about to walk into a world of polished marble and overpriced furniture, armed with nothing but a borrowed ID badge and a vague sense of dread. She pushed through the revolving doors, the lobby swallowing her in its sterile glow. The security guard barely glanced at her badge before waving her through. "Elevator to the 22nd floor," he grunted, eyes already back on his phone. Leela nodded, clutching the cleaning card like a lifeline. The elevator ride was silent, save for the soft hum of machinery and her own heartbeat. She'd never been in a place this fancy before. The mirrored walls reflected her faded jeans and scuffed sneakers, making her feel like an imposter. Mara had promised it was straightforward: empty trash cans, wipe down desks, vacuum the carpets, nothing she couldn't handle. Still, her stomach churned. She wasn't built for places like this, where even the air smelled like money. The 22nd floor was eerily quiet, the kind of silence that felt expensive. Rows of cubicles stretched out under fluorescent lights, each desk identical, a computer, a phone, a sad little plant wilting in a pot. The corner offices were different, sprawling, with floor-to-ceiling windows showcasing the city's glittering sprawl. Leela started with the cubicles, moving methodically, her hands steady despite the nerves. The work was mindless, almost meditative. She emptied coffee-stained mugs into the sink, tossed crumpled sticky notes into the recycling, and dusted keyboards that probably cost more than her rent. It was fine, she told herself, just a few hours, then she'd be back in her world, where dive bars and thrift stores didn't make her feel like she was trespassing. She was halfway through the floor when she heard a low, melodic whistle coming from one of the corner offices. She froze, her rag hovering over a desk. The building was supposed to be empty. Mara had been clear, no one stayed this late. Leela's first instinct was to bolt, but curiosity tugged harder. She crept toward the sound, her sneakers silent on the plush carpet. The door to the office was ajar, light spilling out into the dim hallway. She peeked inside and saw him. He was leaning back in a leather chair, feet propped on a desk that looked like it belonged in a museum. Dark hair, slightly tousled, fell over his forehead as he whistled a tune she vaguely recognized as something old, maybe Sinatra. He was in a dress shirt, sleeves rolled up, tie loosened, a glass of amber liquid in his hand. The city sparkled behind him, a backdrop that made him look like he'd stepped out of a movie. Leela's breath caught, not just because he was handsome though he was, with sharp cheekbones and a jawline that could cut glass, but because he was here, in a place she was supposed to have to herself. She must have made a sound, because his head snapped up, his eyes, a piercing green, locked onto hers. "You're not Mara," he said, voice calm but carrying an edge, like he was used to being obeyed. Leela's mouth went dry. "She's sick. I'm covering her shift." She held up the rag like it was proof of her innocence. "I'm just cleaning." He studied her for a moment, his gaze unreadable but not unkind. Then he swung his feet off the desk and stood, moving with a kind of easy confidence that made the room feel smaller. "You don't look like a cleaner," he said, a faint smile tugging at his lips. "What's your name?" "Leela," she said, too quickly, then cursed herself for not lying. "Look, I'm just doing my job. I'll be out of here soon." "No rush," he said, waving a hand. "I'm just a broken bar decompressing." He gestured to the glass. "Long day. You want one?" He nodded toward a sleek bar cart in the corner, stocked with bottles that probably cost more than her car. She blinked. "I'm working." "Right." He chuckled, the sound warm, disarming. "Fair enough. But you don't have to skulk around like you're robbing the place." "I don't bite." Leela didn't know what to make of him. He didn't seem angry, but he wasn't supposed to be here, and neither was she. Not really. She should have gone back to wiping down desks. But something about the way he leaned against the desk, casual but commanding, kept her rooted. "You always hang out in empty offices drinking alone?" she asked, surprising herself with the boldness. His smile widened. "Only on Tuesdays." He took a sip, then tilted his head. "You always take shifts for friends in places like this." "First time," she admitted. "Not my scene." "I can tell." His eyes flicked over her, not judgmental but curious, like she was a puzzle he hadn't expected to find. "You don't seem like you belong here." "Gee, thanks," she said, sarcasm slipping out before she could stop it. He laughed, a real laugh, and something in her chest loosened. They talked, or rather, he talked, and she let herself get pulled in. "His name was Ethan," he said, "and he worked in strategy, whatever that meant." He told her about the view from the 22nd floor, how it was the best in the city, and pointed out landmarks through the window like a tour guide. She found herself relaxing, trading quips about the absurdity of corporate life. He had a way of making the sterile office feel alive, his stories laced with dry humor that matched her own. She told him about the diner she worked at, the one with the sticky booths and the jukebox that only played country hits. He seemed to find it fascinating, like she was the one from another world. Before she knew it, an hour had passed. She barely cleaned half the floor, and panic crept in. "I gotta get back to work," she said, stepping toward the door. "Come back tomorrow," he called after her. Not quite a question, not quite a command. "Same time." She didn't answer, just pushed her car down the hall, her pulse racing for reasons she couldn't name. The rest of the shift was a blur, her mind replaying the conversation, his smile, the way he looked at her like she wasn't just the help. When she finally left the building, the city felt different, like it was holding a secret. The next night, she was back. She told herself it was for Mara, who was still stuck at the hospital, but deep down, she knew better. She wanted to see him again. The 22nd floor was just as quiet, just as pristine, but this time, she didn't jump at every sound. She worked faster, her eyes darting to the corner office. Sure enough, he was there, same chair, same glass, same easy grin when he saw her. "Leela," he said, like her name was something he'd been turning over in his mind. "You're back." "Told you I'd cover the shift," she said, leaning in the doorway, rag in hand. "You're here again too. Don't you have a home?" "I like the quiet," he said, but his eyes were on her, not the view. "And the company's better tonight." She rolled her eyes but couldn't hide her smile. They talked again, longer this time. He asked about her life via not just the diner, but her dreams, the things she didn't usually tell strangers. She told him about the community college classes she was taking, the ones she squeezed in between shifts, and he listened like it mattered. In return, he shared stories of boardroom battles and deals gone wrong, painting a world she could barely imagine. But he never made her feel small, and that was dangerous. Night after night, she kept coming back. Mara's kid got better, but Leela didn't stop taking the shifts. It wasn't about the money anymore. It was Ethania, the way he made her laugh, the way he saw her, not just the girl with the cleaning cart. They never crossed a line, but the air between them crackled. He'd pour her a drink sometimes, just one, and they'd sit by the window, the city sprawling below like it belonged to them. She started to notice things, the way his hands moved when he talked, the faint scar above his eyebrow, the way he'd watch her when he thought she wasn't looking. One night, she found a photo on his desk, a younger Ethan with a woman and a kid, all smiles. Her stomach twisted. "You got a family?" she asked, trying to keep her voice steady. He followed her gaze, his expression softening. Ex-wife, shared custody. That's old. He didn't elaborate, and she didn't push. But the relief that washed over her was alarming. She was in too deep, and she knew it. By the third week, she was dreading the end of Mara's leave. She didn't want to stop coming here, stop seeing him. But she wasn't stupid. He was suits and cufflinks, she was second-hand sneakers and diner grease. Whatever this was, it had an expiration date. Then came the night that changed everything. She was wiping down his desk when he stood closer than usual, his hand brushing hers as he reached for his glass. The touch lingered, and when she looked up, his eyes were steady, searching. "Leila," he said, voice low, "I don't even know your last name." "Maybe that's for the best," she said, but her heart wasn't in it. He stepped closer, and she didn't move away. The city lights blurred outside, and for a moment, it was just them, the air thick with everything they hadn't said. Leila's breath caught as Ethan's hand lingered on hers, the warmth of his touch sending a jolt through her. The office, with its polished desk and glittering view, felt like it was shrinking. The space between them charged with something she couldn't ignore. She should have pulled away, pushed her cleaning cart out the door, and gone back to her world of diner shifts and late-night study sessions. But she didn't. His green eyes held hers, steady and unguarded, and for the first time, she let herself wonder what it would be like to close the distance. "Stay," he said, his voice soft but firm, like he was asking for more than just a moment, just for a bit. She set the rag down, her hands trembling slightly. "I'm done cleaning," she said, trying to keep it light. "You trying to get me fired?" He smiled, but it wasn't his usual easy grin. It was something softer, almost vulnerable. "I'm the last person who'd get you fired," he said, and there was a weight to his words she didn't understand. They sat by the window, like they had so many nights before, but this time felt different. He poured her a drink of bourbon, smooth and sharp, and they talked, not about work or the city, but about the things that mattered. He told her about growing up in a small town, how he'd clawed his way into this world of glass towers and power plays. She told him about her mom, who'd raised her alone, and the art classes she took at community college, sketching dreams she wasn't sure she'd ever chase. The conversation flowed too easily, and when he reached for her hand again, she didn't pull away. His thumb brushed over her knuckles, and he said, "You're not like anyone I've ever met, Leila." It wasn't a linea, it felt like a confession. Her heart pounded, but before she could respond, her phone buzzed. Mara, texting that she was back on the schedule tomorrow. Leila's chest tightened. This was Ida, the end of her excuse to be here. "I have to go," she said, standing too quickly. Ethan's hand fell away, but his eyes didn't. "Mara's taking her shifts back." "Then come back anyway," he said, standing too close enough that she could smell his cologne. "Something woodsy and expensive." "Not for the job, for me." She wanted to say yes, wanted it so badly it scared her. But the photo on his desk flashed in her mind, not the ex-wife or the kid, but the reminder of his world, so far from hers. "Ethan," she started, her voice shaky, "you don't even know who I am." "I know enough," he said, stepping closer. "And I want to know more." She shook her head, backing toward the door. "You're some big shot here, aren't you?" "And I'm just a girl with the mop." He froze, his expression shifting, like she'd hit something he hadn't expected her to notice. "You don't know what I do you?" he asked, almost amused. "Does it matter?" She shot back, but her voice cracked. She grabbed her cart and left, the elevator ride down feeling like a descent into reality. The next day, Leila was back at the diner, pouring coffee and dodging grabby regulars. But her mind was still on the 22nd floor. She hadn't told Mara about Ethan, hadn't told anyone. It felt too fragile, too unreal. That evening, she Googled Apex Dynamics on a whim, curiosity getting the better of her. She typed Ethan and Apex Dynamics into the search bar, expecting maybe a mid-level manager or some corporate drone. The results hit like a punch. Ethan Caldwell, CEO of Apex Dynamics. There he was, in a crisp suit, shaking hands at some gala, his smile polished but unmistakable. Articles called him a visionary, a titan, a man who'd turned the company into a global powerhouse. Her stomach dropped. The guy she'd been joking with, sharing drinks with, was the one running the whole damn show. She didn't go back to Apex Dynamics. She couldn't. The gap between them wasn't just money or status, it was a chasm. But 2 days later, a bouquet of wildflowers showed up at the diner. Her name scrawled on the card in sharp, confident handwriting. "Come back." She stared at it, her heart twisting. The flowers weren't roses or anything flashy, they were thoughtful, like he'd remembered her saying she liked the ones that grew in empty lots. That night, she stood outside Apex Dynamics again, the wildflowers in her bag. The security guard waved her through, no questions asked. The 22nd floor was the same, but Ethan wasn't in his office. She found him on the roof, a place Mara had never mentioned, with a view that stretched forever. He was in jeans, not a suit, and he turned when he heard her steps. "You didn't tell me you're the CEO," she said, no preamble. He didn't flinch. "You didn't ask. You let me think you were just some guy." "I am just some guy," he said, stepping closer. "When I'm with you." She wanted to argue, to tell him it wasn't that simple, but he was looking at her like she was the only thing in the city that mattered. "I don't fit in your world, Ethan," she said, quieter now. "Maybe I don't either," he replied. "Maybe that's why I'm up here every night." He reached for her hand, and this time, she let him take it. The city sparkled below, but all she saw was him. When he kissed her, it wasn't the CEO, or the guy from the gala photos. It was Ethan, the man who'd listened to her dreams, who'd brought her wildflowers, who'd made her feel like she belonged somewhere she never thought she could. They stood there, the world below them a blur, and for the first time, Leela didn't care about the gap between their lives. She'd fallen for him, not the title, and maybe just maybe that was enough. Leela's sneakers squeaked on the polished marble as she pushed the cleaning cart through the revolving doors of Apex Dynamics. The glass tower loomed over the city, its reflective surface catching the last streaks of a bruised purple sunset. She wasn't supposed to be here. This was Mara's job, cleaning the 22nd floor of a corporate giant's headquarters, but Mara had called her yesterday, voice frayed with worry. "Leela, my kid's got a fever, and I'm stuck at the If I miss this shift, I'm done. Please, it's good money, easy work." Leela, who'd never set foot in a place this fancy, couldn't say no to her best friend. So here she was, in faded jeans and a borrowed ID badge, feeling like a trespasser in a world of wealth. The lobby was a cathedral of glass and steel, the air sharp with the scent of lemon polish. The security guard barely glanced at her badge before nodding toward the elevators. 22nd floor, he muttered, eyes glued to his phone. Leela's stomach churned as the elevator hummed upward, its mirrored walls throwing back her reflection, messy ponytail, scuffed sneakers, and a nervous frown. Mara had promised it was simply trash cans, desks, carpets, but the silence of the 22nd floor felt heavier than expected, like the building was holding its breath. She started in the cubicles, moving quickly, her hands steady despite the nerves. Empty coffee cups went into the bin, crumpled memos into recycling, dust wiped from keyboards that probably cost more than her weekly pay at the diner. The corner offices were different, with their sleek furniture and views of the city's glittering sprawl. She was halfway through when a low whistle cut through the quiet, a smooth, jazzy tune she vaguely knew. Her rag froze mid-swipe. Mara had sworn the place would be empty. Heart pounding, she followed the sound to a corner office, its door cracked open, light spilling out. She peeked inside and saw Hema leaning back in a leather chair, feet on the desk, a glass of amber liquid in his hand. Dark hair fell over his forehead, and his tie hung loose, his dress shirt unbuttoned at the collar. He looked like he belonged here, in this world of power and polish, but there was something easy about him, too, like he'd slipped out of the corporate mold for the night. He stopped whistling when he saw her. "You're not Mara," he said, his voice calm but sharp, green eyes locking onto hers. "She's sick." "I'm covering," Leela said, holding up her rag like a shield. "Just cleaning." He tilted his head, studying her. "Name?" "Leela." She regretted it instantly. Why hadn't she lied? "I'll be quick." "Take your time," he said, swinging his feet off the desk. "I'm just a broken bar unwinding." He nodded at his glass, a faint smile playing on his lips. "Want one?" She blinked. "I'm working." He chuckled, the sound warm, disarming. "Fair. But you don't have to sneak around." I'm harmless. Leela wasn't so sure. He was too comfortable, too confident, and way too good-looking for her peace of mind. She should have gone back to her cart, but instead, she found herself answering his questions. His name was Ethan, he said, and he worked in strategy, whatever that meant. He asked about her life via the diner, her community college class and listened like he actually cared. She told him about the jukebox that only played Johnny Cash, and he laughed, a real laugh, not the polite kind she expected from someone in a place like this. They talked for an hour, the cleaning card forgotten. He pointed out the city's landmarks through the window, his voice low and easy, like they were old friends. She caught herself smiling too much, lingering too long. When she finally left, her pulse was racing, and the city outside felt different, like it was in on a secret. She came back the next night, and the next, telling herself it was for Mara, but knowing it was for him. Ethan was always there, in that office, with that smile. They'd talk, sometimes share a drink, and the lines between their worlds blurred. He told her about boardroom fights and high-stakes deals. She told him about her mom, her sketches, her dreams of something bigger. He never made her feel small, and that scared her most of all. One night, she saw a photo on his desk of Ethan, younger, with a woman and a kid. Her stomach twisted. "You got a family?" she asked, trying to sound casual. "Ex-wife," he said, his voice soft. "Old photo. We share custody." He didn't elaborate, and she didn't ask. But the relief she felt was dangerous. She was falling, and she knew it. By the third week, Leela was dreading Mara's return. She didn't want to stop coming here, stop seeing him. But she wasn't naive. He was corporate. She was coffee stains. This couldn't last. Then came the night he stood too close, his hand brushing hers as he reached for his glass. The air crackled, and when he said her name, it sounded like a question. "Leela," he said, "I don't even know your last name." "Maybe that's for the best," she said, but she didn't move away. The city lights blurred, and for a moment, it was just them. Leela's hand trembled as she gripped the cleaning cart's handle. Ethan's touch still warm on her skin. His green eyes held hers, steady and searching, and the office felt too small, the air too thick. She should have left, pushed past him, back to the safety of her world, but her feet wouldn't move. His words hung between them. "I don't even know your last name." Her half-hearted reply hadn't pushed him away, and now he was closer, his presence filling the room like the city lights outside. "Stay," he said, his voice low, almost a plea. "Just a little longer." She set the rag down, her resolve crumbling. "I'm done cleaning," she said, trying to keep it light, but her voice betrayed her. "You trying to get me in trouble?" He smiled, not his usual easy grin but something softer, raw. "I'd never," he said, and there was a weight to it, like he meant more than just tonight. He gestured to the window, where the city sprawled in a mosaic of lights. "Best view in the city, stay for it." They sat on the leather couch by the window, a bourbon in her hand now, the burn of it grounding her. They talked, not about work or the cleaning cart, but about the things that cut deeper. He told her about his childhood, a small town where ambition was a dirty word, and how he'd fought his way to this office. She told him about her mom, working double shifts to keep them afloat, and the sketchbook she hid under her bed, full of dreams she was too scared to chase. His thumb brushed her knuckles as he listened, and she didn't pull away. Her phone buzzed, shattering the moment. Mara's text, "Back tomorrow." "You're off the hook." Leela's chest tightened. This was the end of her reason to be here. Gone. She stood, too fast, the bourbon glass clinking on the desk. "I gotta go," she said. Mara's taking her shifts back. Ethan stood too, close enough that she could smell his cologne, woodsy and warm. "Come back anyway," he said, his voice steady. "Not for the job, for me." Her breath caught. She wanted to say yes, wanted to believe it could be that simple. But the photo on his desk of the ex-wife, the Kita, flashed in her mind, a reminder of his world, so far from hers. "Ethan," she said, her voice shaking, "you're someone here." "I'm just the girl with the mop." His expression shifted, a flicker of something like surprise, then amusement. "You don't know what I do, do you?" "Does it matter?" she snapped, but the fight in her voice was thin. She grabbed her cart and left, the elevators hummed drowning out the pounding in her chest. The next day, Leela was back at the diner, pouring coffee and dodging lewd comments from truckers. But her mind was on the 22nd floor. Ethan's smile, his voice, the way he looked at her like she was more than her circumstances. She hadn't told Mara. Hadn't told anyone. It felt too fragile, like a dream that would dissolve if she said it out loud. That evening, on her break, she pulled out her phone and Googled Ethan Apex Dynamics, expecting some mid-level exec. The results hit like a cold wave. Ethan Caldwell, CEO of Apex Dynamics, photos of him in tailored suits, shaking hands at galas. His name in headlines about billion-dollar deals. The man she'd been joking with, sharing drinks with, was the head of the whole damn company. Her stomach twisted. She'd been falling for someone who didn't just belong to this world. He owned it. She didn't go back, couldn't. The gap between them wasn't just money, it was power, status, a life she couldn't touch. But 2 days later, a delivery arrived at the diner. Wildflowers, not roses, with a card in sharp handwriting. Come back. She stared at them, her heart racing. He'd remembered her saying she liked the scrappy flowers in vacant lots, not the ones from fancy shops. It was too much. That night, she stood outside Apex Dynamics, the wildflowers in her bag. The guard waved her through, no questions. The 22nd floor was quiet, but Ethan wasn't in his office. She found him on the roof, a place Mara had never mentioned, the city stretching out like an endless promise. He was in jeans, not a suit, his hair catching the wind. He turned when he heard her, his face lighting up. You didn't tell me you're the CEO, she said, her voice steady despite the chaos inside her. He didn't flinch. You didn't ask. You let me think you were just some guy. I am, he said, stepping closer. With you, I am. She shook her head, the wildflowers heavy in her bag. I don't belong here, Ethan. Your world, it's not mine. Maybe I don't belong in it either, he said, his voice quiet but sure. Why do you think I'm up here every night, instead of at some gala or board meeting? He reached for her hand, and she let him take it, his warmth cutting through the night's chill. I don't care about the title, he said. I care about you. She wanted to argue, to list all the reasons this was impossible, but his eyes were steady, and when he leaned in, she didn't pull away. His kiss was soft at first, then deeper, like he'd been holding back for weeks. The city blurred below, and for the first time, Leela didn't care about the gap between them. She'd fallen for Ethan, not the CEO, and as his arms wrapped around her, she let herself believe it might be enough.